Okay. Okay, let's just revisit back. So previously I already introduced to you about the concept, about the difference between what you call this data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Okay. So when you come to knowledge, knowledge is really, about the meaningful information now you set into context to apply it. Okay. So and then the wisdom is actually when we talk about survival of knowledge. So that's actually the kind of understanding that we can differentiate between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Um, Last week also, and a previous topic also, I introduced to you more details, okay, about what is actually the difference when we talk from the learning process, okay. So when we talk about data, information, knowledge, we probably see pretty much straightforward, okay. Knowledge actually go deeper. For example, you are taking this course with me right now, and just now you are actually spending about more than an hour in the class activity. So this is actually not just about data information. This is about knowledge that I aim to impart to you, okay, through that activity. So there's a lot of analysis and synthesis involved in that kind of activities, okay. So this is actually what we frame in the context of learning process. So when we go through the process, there's always an outcome. That's why when you want to become a very good student, okay, studying your courses and want to get an A from and want to get a 3.5, 3.0, you have your aim for that. You make sure that the way that you learn is also, moving towards knowledge. Okay, don't learn about memorization, only memorize that. I mean, certain context or subject maybe work well, we have to do some memory, but when you apply things, for example, like knowledge management, we are doing on the application. We are actually at the levels of apply the knowledge. So in this case, that there's a lot of kind of activity beyond than just memorization. So this is actually the aspect of learning process. When come to wisdom, it's about judgment and taking appropriate action. So that's actually the simple understanding that we can see in terms of the context. We also looked into the technology last week about the topic, and we see that technology is actually becoming a very powerful tools that create a lot of opportunity. If you talk from the the innovation, how knowledge actually can be transformed, making organization more innovative, making us more innovative, creative, for example. Okay. So knowledge, not just from data information, now it can be contextualized. And finally, is actually having some what you call this advanced tools such as algorithm, such as intelligent techniques. They are actually can show certain patterns, and then through that we can actually make a well-informed decision and better judgment, on how we actually see the situation. Okay, so those are actually where the technology can come as part of doing the analytics. And of course, at the end of the day, it's always us, human being, a decision maker, you as a student, you as a son, a daughter, for your parent, you as I don't know, you will assume a lot of roles later on, okay, as a friend and so on. So whatever it is us actually need to actually manage that knowledge and put it into action. And when we can actually become in making decision, we are actually can move to the higher level, the wisdom side. Okay, so that's actually the kind of skills that we must take advantage of what the technology offer. Last week also, Rohaya already introduced to you about the three contexts of where we look from the viewpoints of the technology coming in to be part of the knowledge management system. So you can have the enterprise, or it's embedded within the work system, and also embedded in a very specialized technological tools that actually aim to actually provide some intelligent what you call this ways to help human being in making decision. So we'll see the examples of a few that already shared with you. So those are actually the what we covered last week. Now this is actually also coming from the topic 1, okay, just to recap back before coming into details. From Nonaka point of view, when you talk about creating knowledge, it is actually a very dynamic process. For example, like Rohaya creating the activity with you this morning, it also depends. Some of you actually doesn't engage with that. You don't really care. I have in my class about 83 students. There will be some students who just don't care. Don't care meaning that they don't care about them, you know, they don't care about their study, they don't care. There are students like that, you know. Or maybe they just come to the class, just, you know, among you, just take your, you know, your attendance and so on. That's it. You think that I'm done my part. You know, the whole thing about knowledge, I mean, it's really up to you actually, you know, it's really up to you, because whoever actually benefit from that is actually the one who actually owning that knowledge, owning that process, you know. If you are be part of this, what we call this dynamic process about, you know, gaining knowledge, creating knowledge, you will gain benefit. But for those who actually not inside this process, no one actually can help you, you know. So in this case, whatever thing coming to you, you know, you don't look beyond than that. You look at yourself. Okay, so this is actually, you know, not so much about the survival of the intelligence, survival of the genius or what, you know, we don't care. This is about the survival of the human being who can actually adjust it well, be flexible, and they know how to respond. Okay. So I see, I mean, throughout my 20 years, you know, I also a student once upon a time, you know, I took you know, I mean, I'm actually a very, very, you know, a passionate learner in certain things that I really love to learn. So in this case, you decide what actually to benefit for you. So this is actually the context when we talk about the dynamic process, okay? And of course, sometimes, like the same, you do a lot of group activity. Sometimes your friend is not committed like you know, they don't just give whatever you want, you know. You will see that in the project later on when we do the problem-based learning. But you know what, I always say this to my students, you know, it is actually very dynamic, but you have to actually look at yourself, and then you just have to say to yourself, you have to get done this, you know, because this is actually what you want to do, okay? And you cannot allow 1 or 2% to actually affect your grade, you know. You will take charge of it. Don't worry about it. I mean, those people who actually are going through the phase that don't care all this thing, trust me, they will do the same in their life, you know. It doesn't create benefit to anyone, and to them, of course, you know, it harming them. But you yourself, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to get things done. That's actually how you sharpening your skill, your leadership skill, your teamwork skill, and so on. Okay. And then this is actually where we talk about the subjectivity of actors. Actors mean that human being like us. And then embedded in context, context is always about space and time. For example, like the group activity you are doing digitally, everybody have their own what you call this, you know, doing at their own place, you know, according to the time frame that Rohaya give it to you. Okay. So this is actually what we call embedded in context. Okay. And of course, there is actually a social process. Social process meaning that I interact with you right now. You are my student. I'm your lecturer. You interact with your friends. You are actually at the same level. So, you know, you are actually carry the same hat. You are the students. Okay. And then social process also defined by how you know, how you judge me. For example, I judging you. For example, I know I get more information than you. What are the data that are available about you? So those are actually part of how we actually relate to one another, okay, the personal side, okay. So Rohaya already introduced to you about the 4 principles that driving from the Nonaka, you know, philosophy about knowledge. Knowledge is very subjective. Knowledge is process relational. This is actually where we are talking about the relationship. You know, knowledge is born from multiple perspectives of human interaction. So the activity that I've done with you just now, just to say that everybody actually, you know, you produce a different kind, because that's actually a different kind of form probably when I see that. But anyway, we're going to go into details later on. And then it's also depend on how we interpret our world, okay? And then knowledge actually carries certain aesthetic or certain significance only when you apply into context, or you have certain important context. That's why I say to you, even you coming to class, stay with me, you know, but if it's actually not creating value for you, you don't see it, it doesn't actually create any impact. Similar with other courses. So if you strive only for just, you know, get things done just like that, but you don't actually create a lot of benefits for you, okay? So those are actually really important to understand that it is actually carries certain significance to you, then it can be very, very meaningful to you. You yourself have to decide, okay? And then knowledge is created through practices. So this is actually where we look on the job training, you know, we train you, we train skill, like Rohaya always give you a lot of group activity, because, you know, 2 things that this class must achieve. One is actually on your leadership, you know, and another one is actually your teamwork, okay? So those are actually defined within our aim. So only by working with others, then you actually can start. Even we have certain limitation, not having in the physical classes, but at least those elements actually very, very important for us. I hope that, despite the limitation about the COVID-19 created for us, but don't forget that, be involved in the community. You can give in many ways, for example, okay? Even you cannot be physically there, but you can contribute in other way. So those are actually the practices to make us actually a good person, try to look at the positive things, sharpen our skills and so on. So these are actually the 4 contact that you must remember, okay? And then what is actually organizational knowledge creation theory, or in particular, we call it searching model, okay, for Nonaka, a proposal. So Nonaka believe that there is always a continuous interaction between tacit and explicit knowledge, okay? Let me ask first, is Sira here? Sira Luffy? I only see the name Sira Luffy. Sira here? Is Sira? Okay, now Lorita here? Lorita? Are you there, Lorita? Okay. Aditya, are you there? It's probably there, just that it takes some time. Aditya, are you there? Okay. How about Husna? Husna? Okay. Why anyone actually not speaking? Ricky, are you there? Kau pernah cakap sorang-sorang ni.
Yes.
Okay. Finally ada someone actually speak. Ricky, are you there? Ricky,
Yes.
Okay, Ricky. Can you actually tell me what's the difference between tacit versus explicit knowledge? Can you give me
Tacit. We actually experience it.
Experience it?
While
Okay.
while the another one, we can learn it repeatedly.
Repeatedly. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Ricky, the most easiest way to understand is that tacit knowledge is very, very hard to quantify. Maksudnya you susah nak record dia sebagai database, nak put dia dalam PowerPoint, macam orang bercakap dengan you sekarang. Okay, this is actually the tacit knowledge. Okay, explicit knowledge adalah yang paling senang sekali. Buku is example tacit explicit knowledge, books. Okay, you will see, for example, what you call this directory. You watch movie, for example. Okay, the movie itself, when you watch movie itself, is explicit knowledge. Okay, but when you're actually having a moment, for example, with your mother cooking, okay, and then your mother actually talking to you about the recipe and so on, is that tacit or explicit knowledge, Ricky? You classify that tacit or explicit knowledge?
Tacit.
Yeah, very good. That is actually tacit knowledge, okay? So tacit knowledge is actually much harder, okay? But these are actually the most powerful one, okay? It's very difficult to articulate, okay? In a way that is meaningful and complete. So kalau your mom sharing the recipe with you at that particular time, only you and your mom actually, having that significant of that knowledge, okay? Otherwise, other people actually not being part of that. The same like we see kalau we translate into the what you call this last week, like Prof talk about the surgeon, for example, the robotic surgeon. So the surgeon, when they do things, they are with the equipment, they do things and something like, unless you try to code that, then you can convert, the surgeon and then become part of source learning to become explicit knowledge, okay? So I hope that that's actually pretty much clear between tacit versus explicit knowledge. Such a model, what we see, okay, very difficult when we talk from tacit knowledge. So the search process that involve, according to Nanaka, you need to convert this, okay, from tacit to explicit, explicit back to tacit, then you can actually create knowledge in the organization. So S actually stand for socialization, E stand for externalization, C stand for combination, and I stand for internalization. So the searchy process is actually socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. So we call it searching model, okay? So what is actually searching model, okay? So socialization happens when tacit knowledge is actually converted to tacit knowledge. For example, the activity that we have just now, you create your own human form. That's actually the form of sort of tacit knowledge that you have right now. You yourself understand that, okay? You know, when you actually interact with your friends, when you do the group activity, now you are socializing with your friends. So you are actually sharing information, sharing, you know, explain about the story. So this is actually the tacit to tacit knowledge, okay? Now, when Paraya asking your what you call this, your leader to coordinate and also make sure that there is a submission, always I put it in the elite, okay? Because we want to convert whatever you learn from the activity and other people can access as well from the tacit knowledge to become explicit knowledge. So, you know, it's available in PowerPoint. Your friend can see it. Then when Raya actually put it in Elite, for example, everyone can see it. So it's actually keep multiplying and keep getting bigger. So we are actually converting from tacit knowledge, now putting in PowerPoint, it become the explicit knowledge, okay? And then we can actually also move back from explicit knowledge, I move to explicit knowledge to explicit knowledge. So this is actually where we combine. So when you produce the human form, your leader got the human form, everybody involved in the brainstorming prior asking you about to produce a set of skills over there. So this is actually where you can achieve only when you combine whatever you have in the explicit form. So this is actually more systematic. And then you convert back from explicit knowledge to tacit knowledge. So it becomes a story later on. You will tell today with another friend or your mom asking you, for example, Valera, what do you learn in class today? And then you tell your mom, oh mom, today my lecturer asking us to do this activity and this is what we do, you know. So the process that you are telling your mom now, actually converting back from what you've gone through with the explicit knowledge, now you are going sharing it with your mother, for example. So the SETI model in the very simplest form is like that. Okay, socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. Okay. And then what is actually the what you call it? We can see in terms of the metric that we see now. Okay, tacit to tacit is actually socialization. Tacit to explicit. This is actually where we internalize. You know, tacit to explicit, we externalization. Explicit to explicit is a combination. So these are actually just to show you the visualization of that. Okay. So what is actually the creating process, the knowledge creating process that happened according to this model, okay, the searching model. So if you actually can look, later on I will find the one that I scanned the reference so that you can read the article by the Naka that have all this. So you see 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these are actually the knowledge creating process following searching model, okay. So the first one, okay, if we look, okay, from the tacit knowledge is you, okay, perceiving the reality as it is. So this is you doing the human form just now that when I give you certain detail. And then sensing and empathizing the others and the environment, and then you transfer of tacit knowledge. So you done your parts now, you move to your group breakout activity. Now you start to share the story about it, what you do, okay? Number 4, articulating tacit knowledge through dialogue and reflection. So when you go into socialization with your friends, okay, you are actually, doing a lot of dialogue as well, okay? And then when you start to articulate using symbolic language, meaning that, you know, like you use, words, language that you use, objects, you know, so describing that, you know, whatever you use, you translate, you are actually working within the tacit knowledge, okay, that trying to put it in the explicit nature, okay. And then you translate the tacit knowledge into the concept of prototype. This is actually happening when you start to innovate, okay. And then number 6, you gather and integrate what you call this explicit knowledge, and then breaking down the concept, editing again. So this is actually when you're converting explicit and explicit combination. So this is actually the last task that Rohaya asking you to actually draw, you know, based on the group activity, the list of skills. So you need to combine, you need to discuss about that. And then number 9 and 10, so you embody explicit knowledge through action, reflection, then using simulation and experiment. So this is actually when you talk from the innovation point of view on how actually the knowledge creating process is actually happening, okay? So it starts from individual. When you move to socialization, to externalization, you need a group for that. And then when there are actually a lot of combination of group, okay, And then finally, if you internalize, when the person itself actually getting better, they know more, their skill actually getting better and so on, then we say that they are internalizing, the knowledge, then they become a better person than before. Okay. So learning process that Rohaya measure or believe is about change of behavior. So if you take this class, for example, after you done this class at the end of the semester, but you don't actually change any behavior, maybe you just get a grade only. So meaning that there's not much actually happening, towards you as a learner. In other words, you don't actually learn much actually. So a learning process is always about the change behavior. But if what Raya is saying to you now, for example, after you done it, then you think that, oh, as a person, I need to manage my knowledge so that I can make full use of the knowledge and I can actually apply this, whatever I do. That is actually what we say a change of behavior happening. So the learning process is actually taking place. Okay. So this is actually how we understand from the context of the knowledge creating process or the searcher model. Okay, I still have about 10 minutes. I try my best to go through with you and then we wrap up by 11. Okay. So there are 4 modes of the knowledge conversion here. The first one, we say the socialization. So this is actually where we're sharing experience, okay? And then the tacit knowledge is actually shared through experience, create another tacit knowledge. So you are sharing about your, what you call your human form just now, from your visualization, from your understanding, from your knowledge. So you share with your friends, okay? And then example you will see, like in the workplace, observation, imitation, and practice. This is actually how the socialization happen, so that the apprenticeship system actually working. Okay, so if you're doing your what you call this LI or your industrial training later on, you will actually involve in this process. Okay, so whether you observe, you imitate, and you practice. And then, of course, in the context of the knowledge creation, socialization is not just about observation, but it is also about your learning. You abandon whatever thing that you have before. When you involve and socialize with others, you add in a lot of new information and creating a new knowledge for that. Okay, so that and then of course you share feeling of experience as well. So this is actually make the knowledge, a creation process start to work now within the socialization. Okay, and then the quality of the experience and the degree to which one is able to observe while in the experience matters more. So like Brian said to you, you coming to class, you involved in the group activity, you decide what are the contexts or what are the kind of thing that you actually creating from this experience with your friends. Your friend can perceive you as a very difficult person, they don't like you. Maybe they don't like you because the way that you present yourself like that. So the quality of the experience, them and you actually creating this dynamic. Okay, so meaning that that's why we need to do the reflection, the reflective skill must be there. So you need to prepare yourself. One day you're going to become a manager. One day you become a supervisor. One day you become a father, a mother. One day you become a teacher. One day. So you're going to move to your role. So that's why when you can understand very well about how you can actually respond, you are actually going to be a very, a best version of yourself. And then if you talk from the work, work context, so these are actually the future of knowledge workers that we visualize we want to have, okay, in that particular industry or particular business and so on, okay. So these are actually the context of the socialization. Research also put the perspective that, when you talk from the workplace, for example, you can divide the work area into several zones, okay? I guess you can also look from the point of view, you as a student, for example, okay? You must have a zone that actually defined as a focus. You also have a zone that actually be defined through the media, like your social media, your Facebook, and so on. You have a zone that can be defined as socializing, okay? And then you have a zone that you can do anything, touch down, keep base, and so on, okay? And then the collaboration space, and of course, you must have the zone for the innovations, okay? So there are actually this important zone that have been put, okay? You also look from the viewpoint of there are 4 aspects: focus, collaborate, learn, and socialize, okay? So this is almost the same like what we say about this socialization, okay? And then once you actually can take the point of view like this, to create the workplace or to create your work areas right now, okay, you as a student right now, you can actually be open to a lot of opportunity. Okay. And of course, from the context of organization, you are actually looking to align in terms of workplace strategy and the goals, and also to benchmark and put result in context. So when we actually going through the learning process or creating knowledge through such a model, we always try to complement with what the organization direction is all about. Okay. So these are actually the context, and then it's actually argued that they can actually make us more productive, and we are actually more happy, okay, at our, involving with our colleagues and so on. Okay, so these are actually the context of the aspect socialization. Now, externalization is actually when we articulate a tacit knowledge in the socialization stage into explicit concept. So you put the tacit, now you try to document it, to code it, to put in the PowerPoint, so that everybody can access, to snap a picture there, then you share with your friend. So those are actually, you are codified it, okay? So you put into explicit. So this is the example from the context of R&D team trying to explain a new product concept. So you yourself try to explain to your friend about your human figure, but you need to show what is the human figure. So this is actually the way, the best way where you can allow those kind of sharing knowledge can happen. Okay. And then the ideal knowledge creation process always involved in the creation of metaphor, concept, analogies, hypothesis, or models. Okay. So if you are doing your final year project, this is actually the part now that you are actually putting in the writing right now. Check in the literature, reading, and so on, so that you can develop the hypothesis, you can develop model, for example. So this is actually what we call externalization, the articulation of tacit knowledge, okay? And then the outcome from that process is that the new knowledge actually can be created once again. So this is actually the innovation that result from that. And then it can create that through dialogue and collective reflection. So that's why for these courses, it is very important to have a lot of the group activity, because for I design the content and also the courses actually to follow such a model. That's why such a model is actually very, very critical in the course delivery, okay? And then combination basically when we combine, we make it systematic into a knowledge system, okay? And then we reconfigure back, checking back about the previous knowledge information. Now we combine, edit, and breaking down. Then we try to actually make it a conclusion for that. So the kind that Rohaya give to you the task just now, after you done sharing that, then we want to draw the skills. So collect all the skill and list of the skill actually based on what actually all the friend actually sharing, okay? And then you use a ICT to facilitate this. So we have the PowerPoint, we have the e-lead, you have your online form. For example, you use a WhatsApp for the asynchronous. Sometimes you can call or make in Zoom, for example, for the synchronous. So these are actually where we use ICT to facilitate that, okay? At the end of the day, we want to create, knowledge to be more innovative from before, for example, okay? And internalization, actually the last process where we embody explicit and back to tacit knowledge. So if you want to check about your understanding, whether you understand whatever actually you learn from classes, so that's why people say, try to teach others. When you're teaching others, you are actually making yourself better and understand more. Yes, because from the explicit now, you convert back to tacit knowledge, you share with others. That's why when you give more, you are actually will receive more, okay? So knowledge works like that. You are becoming, there's no what you call this a scarcity in the concept of knowledge. It's the finite, okay? The other limitation, it keep multiplying, okay? So that's actually the beauty of knowledge. And also internalization, also learning by doing. For example, creating the training programs, with conscious mind, like the robotic surgeon to capture from the surgeon, that particular surgeon have experience everything. You try to put the expert system so you can cater whatever the surgeon decision, put it in the codified so that you can run as a training program, okay? And then knowledge is applied and used in practical solution. It becomes the basis for new routine. So, we actually always try to make ourselves better. We read books, we hear videos and so on. But unless you apply it, then it becomes very powerful. Then you start to see in yourself when there's actually a learning process involved, when there's actually a change of behavior, okay? So that's actually what you call this, the kind of what you call this, the aspect that we see, when we see in terms of the knowledge. Shared mental model and technical how. So when we are sharing that, we also involve in the context of sharing the same thinking, the same, whatever thing, and also the technical know-how we transfer that, okay? And then documentation is help to internalize what they experience, okay? And then the process by which we reflect on the meaning of what we have learned from action, convert explicit knowledge into skill that can be used. So this is actually where we are actually putting all the thing, internalize it, and finally, you know, the process actually going again through spiral. You're going to start again the searching, socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. So this is actually what it triggers as a spiral of knowledge creation. So this is actually what the Nonaka argue, that in the organization, especially Japanese, okay, Japanese are very, very creative, very, very innovative. They are not loud like American, but they are very, very good at what they do, okay? So because they believe in terms of this knowledge process, okay? And then they also actually rely a lot on the community of practice, communities of interaction, so that it can actually go beyond one individual, groups, go to a departmental, division, and also the organization, sharing between organization, okay? So this is actually the 4 modes of the knowledge creation. And then when we talk about the spiral, so we are talking about the explicit converting to tacit, go back to explicit, and then you are actually looking at the knowledge level beyond that individual, going to the share of organization. All right, we're going to stop our lecture today. So I'm going to continue next week to finish off the part, and also to introduce to you to 2 more, and also to bring to you about the context of the organization.